Happy Sunday. Nice to see you guys. So we're gonna have a ball and a blanket handy, and let's start in a nice comfy seat. Something where you feel like you can get your spine nice and vertical. And as that spine gets vertical, think about what those subtle tweaks and adjustments that can be made to most impactful for your shape. And then think about that release in between the connection of our torso, neck, kind of middle and guiding portion of the body. So there's this little village with this very prominent fountain, a fountain where for centuries people have come to make wishes, and where the very culture of the community itself has built up around this idea of making wishes into this fountain. Check in with the rate of respiration here. Think about how the rate of respiration is impacting your body's ability to relax. We'll give ourselves about 60 more seconds here. As you find ease into the seat, really pay attention to the orientation of your spine, to how subtle shifts towards flexion or extension, even shifts that seem so minute they couldn't possibly be impactful, are dramatically impactful in how we land here. Next time that you inhale in, make sure it's a full inflating inhale breath. Hold for just a pause at the top of that inhale, and then let's exhale and transition ourselves into a little forward fold from wherever we are, just finding an opportunity to engage the posterior chain, to interact with the posterior chain. And note how the respiration is impacted by an engagement of that posterior chain, a pulling into tautness of the posterior chain, and then see how your respiration can impact the tautness. What can we do to soften our body here? To expand our fold through release, ease. Take a nice big full inhale and a deep full exhale. Completely release into the exhale portion of your breath. And then with the next inhale, we'll walk our way back to vertical. Finding neutrality with the cervical spine. And with an exhale, let's turn our gaze over towards the left. Keep that right shoulder pinned in place like there's an energetic anchor just holding you there. And then we'll return our gaze to neutral. Make sure the cervical spine maintains that neutrality as we turn towards the right. And relaxing back to neutral. Let's transition to hands and knees tabletop. We won't spend a lot of time here, but a little opportunity to move and articulate the spine. Set your base position, splay the fingers out wide, and really think about how the fingerprints themselves are interacting with the mat. Have enough engagement in the fingertips that you can feel the ridges that make them individual press against the mat. And let's exhale and sink back into child's pose. Keep the hands planted where they are so we maintain that fingertip engagement. And then as you settle back into the depth of this shape, think about how you can engage the subscapular musculature to pull more width, like a lateral expansion towards the armpits. There's a lot of musculature kind of intertwinement that maximizes this, but start by thinking about hollowing out the armpits. So really taking those armpits and just drawing them back. And then as the armpits kind of draw into that width, engage into that lower and upper abdominal band and think about sending the sacrum back. And then as the sacrum goes back, then we start getting towards the spinal column, toward the medial musculature, and start to pull that with the lats towards the lateral edges of our body. And we'll inhale and pull ourselves back into tabletop. And as we land at tabletop here, we should have some more space across the shoulder girdle, but particularly in that subscapular musculature. Don't let the sternum sag here. Think about neutral upper back, which is not generally something that we're worried about. And then exhale, tuck the chin, push the mid back towards the ceiling, tuck the tailbone. And try to feel the width that you've created across the bottom shelf of that shoulder girdle. And then relax back to neutral. Make sure you feel the fingerprints press against the mat and slide your way back into child's pose. We're kind of going to reverse the widening of the shoulder girdle here. So as you settle back, press down into the pinky finger edge of your hands, the lateral edge, and keep that whole lateral edge from the heel of your hand to the pinky fingerprint engaged, and draw your breath to the center of the lungs. And try to really feel into how the breath is pulling from the center and expanding towards that lateral edge. A very different way to expand our torso musculature. And then the next time that you inhale, let's pull ourselves forward to tabletop. And we'll exhale, tuck the chin, tuck the tailbone, round the center of the back. Really try to get up into that arch of flexion and really feel how the fingerprints are pressing and anchoring you down while the arch of the back is expanding that posterior musculature. And we'll relax and sink back into child's pose. I'm pretty confident that this will be the last time we settle into our child's pose here. So choose what you want to do with that. Choose how you want to engage with that. Is it a complete relaxation into the space you've created? Are you still seeking out ways to expand the shape? Are the arms staying anchored? Are they coming down by your heels? What's going on with the thoracic joint, with the cervical joint, right? How are we treating our head and neck in this shape? How are we treating the proximal humeral head connection in our shoulder joints? Where can we soften or where can we expand? And we'll give ourselves just 30 more seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves to tabletop and we'll extend the legs out in front of us. A brief check-in at staff, so a nice vertical spine, a good lengthening of the torso, and we're headed into a traditional seated forward fold. It is traditional in the physical structure, but it is non-traditional in the way we've prepped the body. So we have essentially worked from the thoracic spine up. I guess we've essentially worked from the thoracic spine in isolation. And so if you're feeling restricted in the hamstrings, really bend the knees so that you can get access to the back. If you're feeling this in the lumbar supportive tissue, you can try bending the knees a little more. If the posterior chain is rigid enough, we may not be able to feel this expansiveness in the thoracic spine musculature, but allow for ease into this shape. And we're going to give ourselves 120 seconds here to really expand into this shape. So a little longer hold than we might normally do in a transitionatory shape. And so from the very young age, the people of this little village were taught that taking a coin down to the fountain, tossing it in, was not only something to do, it was something to better your life with. The earlier you started making wishes, the more likely they were to come true. And so very frequently, with the tourism and the locals all wanting access to the same fountain, there would be lines that would form. So that people could toss their coins into the fountain and make their wishes. Last 60 seconds here. And so the customary gift for every occasion in this little village was a coin. Something useful, something to make a wish with. Birthdays were particularly important. The young children would often get a little satchel full of coins on their birthdays. When it feels appropriate, one big final inhale, expand, and then a complete releasing exhale into all of the space you've crafted. And then we will walk ourselves back to staff. Let's take our blanket or towel, and we are going to take that from a shelf fold to a hot dog fold. So we end up here, and then we'll take our ball and we'll just place that in the center. Maybe a taco fold would be better, right? So we're headed into what has become one of my very favorite shapes, prop shapes. That's going to come behind us so that our head can come down onto it. We are going to release ourselves onto our spine for some neutrality and find the position where the ball can rest and impact the cervical spine in the most beneficial way for you. Let the rest of the body come into the supported neutrality of your mat. And then once you feel like you're set, I'm going to encourage the exploration of an idea. This may not be right for everyone. And so it's very important for us to feel and decide and determine if it's right for us. The idea is to take the ball and place it at that cervical joint where the thoracic spine and the cervical spine meet. It is the position of kind of extreme flexion when we are looking at down at a screen. And so if you just tuck that ball just a little bit lower than maybe naturally fits in the arch of the cervical spine, we can counteract a lot of screen time. I love the blanket because it holds the ball kind of in a static position. However, if you get there and there's a nervy sensation, there's a tingling sensation, there's a numbing sensation, probably means that dysfunction is just a little bit too much to attack in this intense a way. So let's not do that. Just make sure the ball finds a place where it is impacting you positively. On this particular morning, it is this little girl's birthday. And she has received the customary gift, a little satchel full of coins. And she has graciously received this gift from her parents. And she's placed it next to 14 other little satchels of coins that she's received for her previous 14 birthdays. Each of them is full because she's never made a wish. When she was 5, it was kind of cute. By the time she was 7 or 8, her parents started to worry. And now, as she turned 15, it wasn't just her parents. People in the community had noticed. And they started to whisper about why she'd never made her wishes, why she'd never tossed her coins into the fountain. And most of the community didn't assume the best things. That didn't mean she didn't go to the fountain. She, in fact, like most kids of the village, spent a lot of time in the center where the fountain was prominently featured. It was a place of action, a place where tourists were, a place where there was something always happening. We'll give ourselves about 60 more seconds here. Check to make sure you're not fighting against the pressure of the ball. The edges of your body aren't curling in. Instead, you're relaxing into the experience of the support provided by the ball. Whether that is working into the natural articulation of extension of the cervical spine, or whether it is attempting to realign a kind of naturally over flexioned, but over pressurized joint at the base of the cervical spine. Take a big, full, complete inhale. And on the exhale, just melt in. And then we'll take that prop out from underneath our head. Trying to lift as little as possible, and then finding your way back into supported neutrality. And then we're going to start to add some dynamic movement to the head so that we can rotate the cervical spine. So with an exhale, chin falls over to the left. Inhale to neutral. And exhale to the right. Inhale to neutral. Exhale to the left. Inhale to neutral. And exhale to the right. Inhale to neutral. Exhale to the left. Inhale to neutral. And exhale to the right. And we'll inhale to neutral. Pause here. Just kind of allow for a full scan of the body. Think about what feels integrated and what doesn't. And then once you feel like you have an understanding of what is integrated and what isn't, we're going to continue kind of this posterior expansion, this cervical expansion. We're going to do it with some real subtlety here. Something that we've never done before. We're going to dislocate our field of vision from our dynamic head movement. So I want the field of vision to remain static towards the ceiling as we exhale and let the head fall to the left. So as their head falls to the left, the field of vision is going to maintain that gaze towards the ceiling or sky. And then we inhale back to neutral. The field of vision remains static as the head moves. Exhale to the right, field of vision remains static. And inhale to neutral. And we're just going to move here dynamically with the physicality of our body, but static vision field. So just exhaling, the field of vision maintains that vertical orientation. And inhaling your own pace, your own movement depth. And just cycling through, trying to push your body's ability to rotate without shifting the field of vision. And let's go one more time to each side. Eventually, you'll come back to neutral. There's no rush to make that happen. And you'll settle here. Again, no rush to make this happen. Just settling and feeling and thinking about what feels integrated, what doesn't feel integrated, what feels more open, more at ease, more spacious. And then allow your eyes to close. settle into the feeling here with the eyes closed. And then we are going to replicate the static field of vision with head rotation with the eyes closed. So you'll maintain that forward direction, that vertical direction of your eyes, even though we're not getting the light feedback. And we'll rotate with our breath while the field of vision, although blocked from light, remains static. And the physical rotation remains dynamic. Again, these are all brand new, so it may take some time to really feel like you're settling into this idea, and that's perfect. With the eyes closed, I want you to think about how the exhale that we're utilizing for the cervical spine rotation can also allow more capacity for the eyes to move. Think about how the musculature moving your eyes, right, which is what we need to do. The eyes need to move to maintain that static field of vision because the head's rotating. How you can use the exhale to get more depth, to get more capacity for the eye musculature to expand your ability to rotate the head and maintain that same vertical orientation of the field of vision, even though the light is blocked. And let's do 2 more times in each direction. Do not rush. Feel the full capacity of your exhale. Feel the expanding capacity of your exhale. Eventually, there will be a time when you come back to a static neutrality. You can determine whether keeping the eyes closed or allowing them to open is the most impactful for you. And as you come back into this neutral alignment, I want you to think about how the exhale and inhale portions of your breath can be a part of this centering. And with that idea of centering, think about that medial line of your body, the spinal column itself, being this place that both halves of your breath land within. And just give yourself 60 more seconds, just landing at this center alignment. So one of the things that this young girl started to do down by the fountain, where all of these tourists would come, where all these villagers would come, kind of where the queue started, where the line would start. She would write little messages, little things that she knew that were happening. So, like when it was peak raspberry season, she wrote a little message in chalk. The berries are ripe and they're perfectly sweet. And she etched out a little raspberry picture and she drew a little chalk map where people could best find these raspberries. Some days when she could feel the weather shifting, she'd write a little message. It's going to rain tomorrow. Open your windows and experience the rain. And a lot of people didn't see the messages. A lot of people did. A lot of people ignored the messages. Not everybody. Nothing made her happier. When it feels appropriate, let's inhale and bring our knees into a bent position if they're not already. And then exhale and let the bottoms of the feet come together and the knees fall out wide. Coming out of this core focus, this medial line attentiveness, you may feel more deeply the asymmetry of this opening. And so as the hips externally rotate, there is mathematically, certainly, some level of asymmetry, right? And you may be experiencing that, and it may feel like you're getting more and more off kilter. Instead of the traditional cue that I might give you, engaging the core and centering the sacrum, see if you can engage the exhale breath. And engage the centering of the inhale breath so that you re-find that spinal column neutrality. And from it, expand further and further into the external rotation of the hips through the exhale. Feeling center on the inhale and expanding from center on the exhale. A width all the way to the edges of the shoulders and the torso. An ever expanding width from that abductor musculature of the hips. We'll give ourselves about 30 more seconds here. And nothing made this little girl happier than seeing someone with a basket full of raspberries after they'd seen her sign, or helping someone carry a huge basket full of raspberries up to their little cottage on the hill, coming down and seeing the windows open as the mist, the rain started to accumulate. When it feels appropriate, we'll inhale and bring our knees back to neutral. Take the feet out to the width of the mat and let the knees fall in towards one another. Again, finding the center line in the body and experiencing that center line. Ease. And so, as frequently as possible, this young girl would go down and she would chalk out something that she had experienced that she wanted others to. Wildflowers are in full bloom, with a map to find the best viewing area. A strange thing started to happen. The lines at the fountain started to diminish. Not a lot, not even enough that you would notice it if you weren't paying particularly close attention. They certainly started to diminish. Give ourselves about 30 more seconds here. Just landing with that center medial line with each inhale and with each exhale, both sides of the respiratory cycle. And when it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees back out to the width of our feet and then walk our feet and knees back in line with our hips. With an exhale, let both knees fall to the left. Land in this lumbar rotation. Feel into the capacity of your respiration cycle to impact you here. Will not be a particularly long hold. I'll be here long enough to feel. And so when she wasn't down at the fountain, drawing maps, dropping hints, she was out at the fringes exploring, finding these things that she could map out for people. Fifteen seconds here on this first side. And we'll bring our knees back to neutral. Once again, feel that neutral landing, that centering, that anchoring. Make sure you're integrated in that sensation before you exhale over to the second side and land in that second side twist. More and more time passed. She shared more and more these little hidden treasures. The dwindling of the lines at the fountain continued. Eventually, there was a point where it was undeniable. There were less people tossing their coins, making their wishes into the fountain. When it feels appropriate, let's bring our knees back to neutral. We'll land there, center there. Feel the impact of your breath. Feel the grounding sensation of the exhale and the centering sensation of the inhale. And then ask yourself if there's anything that you want or need prior to Shavasana. And if there is, let's offer that to our body now. And if you have everything that you need, if you're ready for your version of stillness, your version of Shavasana, let's craft a shape where we can deeply appreciate that. Settling into your version of stillness. one morning after she had finished sketching out a little map to a particularly good raspberry patch. She saw one of her friends and he came over and he looked kind of lost. He said, I haven't made a wish in weeks. And I feel different. And she just kind of nodded, like that was the point. He hesitated for a moment and he said, what do you do with all your coins? She said, I keep them in case someone else ever needs one. We'll start to bring some movement into our fingers and our toes. Into our wrists and our ankles. Up into the elbows, to the knees. Shoulders, hips. Neck, head, jaw, his tongue. Eventually, our whole body moves. We'll utilize that movement to transition back into a seat. And in the seated space, spine gets tall, breath centers us, eyes closed. And with our next inhale, let's bring our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself that those who are not seeking more are the ones who discover, and see how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this morning's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Sunday, guys. Appreciate you being here. Thanks for taking care of yourself. I'll be back tomorrow night if you want to move, and we'll do this again next Sunday. Love the heck out of you. Mwah. See you soon.